Hello Dystinct Magazine readers, my name is Mia Borthwick, I'm from Weston-super-Mare and I have dyscalculia. I'm distinct. So my journey with dyscalculia began when I was 6 years old. One of my teachers at the time had noticed that my maths abilities were further behind than everybody else in the class. So my teacher asked my mum to come in because she suspected that I had this condition called dyscalculia. Now, at the time, neither of us had ever heard of dyscalculia. In fact, I remember her actually saying that dyscalculia was a very rare condition and nobody else in the school had ever been diagnosed with dyscalculia. And obviously hearing that you have this rare condition is really daunting and absolutely terrifying. So for many years, I was convinced that I was probably one of the only people in the world that had dyscalculia, which obviously we know now is not true. Now, I wasn't officially diagnosed with dyscalculia until I was 10 years old. It really wasn't easy getting a diagnosis. And throughout my time at school, dyscalculia was just not very well known about at all, and people really didn't understand it. I did receive support at times, but I definitely did not receive the support I should have done. Before I was diagnosed with dyscalculia officially, they decided to test me for dyslexia. Now, this made absolutely no sense to me or my mum because we knew 100% that I did not have dyslexia. It was definitely dyscalculia. So I did the test and it obviously came back that I did not have dyslexia. And after much convincing, eventually I did have a test for dyscalculia. And obviously it did come back that I did have dyscalculia and I did have it quite severely. I've always said the hardest part about having dyscalculia is not just the condition itself. It's actually the humiliation I had when I was growing up, into a world that didn't understand what dyscalculia was. If you're bad at maths, that just meant that you weren't very intelligent. And I had that belief about myself for such a long time. And sometimes I still do. It's never really left me, that feeling of not feeling good enough or not feeling clever enough. There were times when teachers would just tell me to use a calculator rather than supporting me. Maybe I always think maybe that I could have got through my maths GCSE if I had the right support, but unfortunately I didn't. And when it came to the GCSE exam, I wasn't allowed extra time. I wasn't allowed to be in a different room to everybody else. And I remember opening that maths exam paper and just crying because I felt useless and it was embarrassing, being in a room of people that probably could do maths and I couldn't, and it was really humiliating. But even though my time in school was really difficult when it came to academic subjects, I did find a real love for performing when I was 9 years old. I started getting into acting and playing music. Both things are still a huge part of my life today, as I am an actor and a theatre maker and a creative facilitator. I always say that being creative has held me up when I've felt my absolute worst. I've always said what I lack in my inability to do maths, I've gained in my ability to be creative. I never really spoke about dyscalculia to anyone. None of my friends knew, none of my lecturers at university knew, and none of my employers knew either. It wasn't really until 2023 that I began talking about dyscalculia. And that's because I decided I wanted to make a one-woman musical performance about my experience growing up with dyscalculia. The show's called I Don't Have a Maths GCSE, and I toured it around the southwest of England. And I'm honestly so glad that I did because it opened so many doors for me. It meant that I got in touch with the Dyscalculia network that I didn't even know they existed. And when I did, Kat from the Dyscalculia network, she told me that, there's so many people like me that have had the same experience as me as at school. And suddenly I felt less alone. And that's when I realised I don't have this alien condition. It's not a rare condition. It's actually really common. But unfortunately, just not many people know about it. If I could say one thing to anybody with dyscalculia who has been through the exact same experiences as me, I would say that you should not let your inability to do maths define you. You should focus on the things that you can do and not what you can't. And you have to believe in yourself And just remember that being academic is not the be all and end all. You know, just because you struggled in school doesn't mean you're a failure at all.